Hello, my fellow Americans, or wherever on this fucking planet you're from. Today we're going to be talking about the iPod 5th generation, an iconic Apple product that was introduced on October 12th, 2005, just 14 days before I was brought into this world. Now, despite being almost 20 years old, this Apple product has become one of my most used devices on the daily. I've wanted to make this video since I started using the iPod last year, but I figured I wanted to give it some time and see if I would still be using the iPod on a daily basis. And here we are, almost a year later, and I'm still using this iPod every single day of my life. Now let's back up a little bit. Last year I got really interested in listening to bands' entire discographies. I explored artists like the Deftones, the Velvet Underground, Patti Smith, Space Ghost Perp, but the deeper down the music rabbit hole I went, the more I started seeing streaming services' limitations. Not every album from every artist can be found on streaming services, which made listening to entire discographies kinda challenging. Now take Lil Peep for example. Some of his best albums were never officially released, and you could only find them on like YouTube. So then I started using YouTube to MP3 rippers to download the files, and I had to listen to them on CDs because it was a pain in the ass to listen to them anywhere else. And that quickly took up a lot of physical space. It was a mess. And that's when I remembered those antiquated things known as MP3 players. Pay for a single song on my iPod, I pirated it all. At first I planned on buying a cheap one on Amazon. I saw the $20, $30 pieces of shit MP3 players. But after some research I realized that I wanted an iPod. The iPod is kind of like the iPhone of the early 2000s. If you have anything else besides an iPod, you get fucking made fun of. But more importantly than that, the design of the iPod, even almost 20 years later, still stands up. Like, here's the iPod compared to the iPhone XR. They look like they could have been released in the same fucking Apple keynote. Now, I procrastinated buying an iPod for a long time because I really hate spending money. But I guess the universe had other plans for me because back in May, I struck gold at a yard sale. At the bottom of a smelly box filled with wires and broken phones, I found two seemingly pristine iPod videos just laying at the bottom of the bin. So I grabbed those iPods like a fucking dope fiend and ran up to the owner of the yard sale expecting to dish out $50. She looked at me like she was confused as to why I wanted them and said, "How about $3?" So for $3 I bought fucking two iPods and a whole pile of garbage e-waste. That was admittedly garbage because it's just sitting in my drawer now. And what's even more surprising than that is I got home and plugged them in and they both worked fine. And they had music on them too, shitty music at that. So only after about 2 hours of owning my iPods, I found myself living in the year 2005. I began pirating all my music and quickly growing my huge iTunes library, which is something that I'll have to get into more later. After just a month, I already filled the whole 30 gigabytes and I was fiending to put more music on my iPod. So after doing some more research and developing a Reddit addiction, I discovered the iPod modding community. And I fell in love with the customization options. You could change the front plate, the back plate, the storage, the battery, the screen, the RAM. You could change almost every aspect of this iPod, and I loved it. Being someone who's an audiophile and loves electronics, this whole iPod community was a fucking wet dream for me. You could say that I was a fiend for the pod. Now, there's a lot of common mods that people do to these iPods, and the most common is the storage. Now, these iPods come equipped with a really small mechanical hard drive, which is kind of weird because you could literally feel the hard drive spinning when the thing's in your hand. So a lot of people swap that out immediately and they replace it with either flash storage or an SSD. Now, I opted for flash storage because I'm broke and I didn't feel like buying an SSD for my iPod, but it works just fine. I went with the iFlash Solo adapter, which was like $40, and I got a SanDisk Extreme Pro 128GB SD card to pair with my iFlash Solo. Another common upgrade that people do to the iPod is they replace the battery. You could replace it with either the same type of battery, higher capacity battery, or some people even go with a fucking 3000 milliamp battery, which is only possible because of the extra space after stripping out the hard drive. I personally opted for a slightly larger 850 milliamp battery, which is only a little bit bigger than the 650 milliamp battery that comes from the factory. I don't believe that my 800 milliamp battery is any better than the stock battery that comes with the iPod. I think it's like some Chinese business. They just wrote like an extra 200 on there. But anyway, besides upgrading the battery and the storage, I also got a faceplate and a brand new backplate, making my iPod look absolutely pimped out. Now at this point, you might be wondering, why use an iPod when you could stream almost any song on Apple Music or Spotify? And my answer is ownership. All the music on my iPod is mine. I own it. And if the internet goes out, I own it, If I don't pay for fucking Apple Music, I still own my music. And this ties back to what I was saying about the iTunes library. Since you have to seek out each album and each artist that you download, collecting music feels like collecting Pokemon cards. And it's just not the same experience with streaming. This iPod saved my relationship with music because it requires intentional listening. I find myself listening to whole albums or enjoying the shuffle feature and going through all 15,000 of my songs. The iPod is a great conversation starter. It always surprises people to see brand new artists and titles being put on a 19-year-old display. All my friends got a kick out of seeing Charlie XCX Brat on the fucking iPod. And while I understand that for most the iPod is just a novelty, I literally use it every single day. And one of the biggest reasons why I love the iPod is I appreciate having a separate device to listen to music on. I hate how on my phone I have to choose whether I want to listen to music or make a FaceTime call or watch a YouTube video. Having all my music on a separate device makes it so that I can concentrate on the music and just the music. Basically, what I'm trying to say is if you enjoy music, the iPod will make it so you can enjoy it so much better. Anyway, that's going to conclude my iPod rant. Soon I plan to upgrade the other iPod that I got from the yard sale. I want to get the iFlash Quad. I want to try to put 256 gigabytes in it. And I'd like to upgrade the RAM too because it's only got 32 megabytes. And I saw someone was able to upgrade it to 128. Even if I could just get 64 if I replace it with an 80 gigabyte board, then that would still make it so I could shuffle 2 times the songs that I already can. Either way, it's going to be a lot of fun going forward. And I hope you all tune in to see the project. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Thank you so much for watching. Have a beautiful, blessed day.